So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about our project here in Palau. We've pulled in together our collective experience from all around the world over the past 10 years as a company, and we're piling it into this one project to make it the best it can possibly be. So our main propagation technique for coral farming is using mineral accretion technology. Now this is a novel but very innovative scientific technique that basically creates an electrolysis underwater which stimulates coral growth and attachment. And we use metal structures that are powered by anodes to create this electrolysis underwater. So the anodes to the cathode, and at the cathode you have a pH increase, so it becomes more alkaline underwater at the structures. What this does is actually takes hydrogen out of the equation of the chemical reaction, increasing the pH and actually making calcium carbonate accretion more likely and more efficient, both for the coral and for the structure. So the structure and the corals accrete more, which essentially increases growth rates and survival from attachment. Not everything grows so well on an MAT structure though. There are definitely some coral species that prefer to be suspended in the water. So we actually have other techniques as well, such as rope nurseries that we hang Postulipora damicornis from. These grow better suspended in the water column, and so we have 2 nurseries set up for farming these species. So that's our main coral farming initiative, but this project is so much more than just farming corals in a nursery. We have to take into consideration lots of other different aspects to the project that are specific to this site as well as to the other sites that we work at. One of those specifics is the nursery location. So our nursery, we chose to locate in between 2 sides of the reef wall, essentially enclosing our nursery in 270 degrees of reef structure. What this does is it allows fish migration through the nursery and around the nursery, bringing species like surgeonfish and mullet to our nurseries for cleaning, which basically makes our life a lot easier. But to make this even more efficient, we also try to create ecological corridors and corridors for fish movement through the nursery as well. Being that the main floor of the nursery is sand, and so without structures there, it would be a desert and there are no fish passing through the desert. So we actually took old clamshells from Chinese restaurants and from the ocean floor that have died, and we brought clamshells all the way to our nursery and created these corridors that we named Clam Causeway. What we want to do is plant excess coral fragments and unused colonies onto these structures and create a reef highway for fish to pass from the reef to our nursery and introduce lots of species and habitats and its own ecosystem itself. Now, all of that sounds great, but it would be all pointless if we didn't consider predation, which is a big factor here at our project site in Palau, namely from the crown of thorns starfish. So one of the first things we noticed when we started implementing our project here was that there was a lot of these crown of thorns starfish, which are corallivores. And these actually target the specific corals that we work with, namely Acropora. We did some monitoring to study these populations, and we deemed that we have an outbreak population, which means there is more crown of thorns here than we are able to sustain on a natural reef level and also through the restoration efforts. That is why we started taking some crown of thorns out of the water and lowering the population to a level that we can sustain. Another thing that we do while we cull crown of thorns is actually relocate the at-risk coral colonies from the various areas around the bay and consolidate them in our nursery. By bringing all of these colonies into the same area, we're actually creating a spawning hub in our nursery. But we wanted to go one step further. We wanted to make every individual coral structure, all the MAT tables and the pods, individual spawning hubs. So to do this, when we choose species to use on our broodstock tables, we were actually taking at least 5 genetic individuals from each species and pairing them up on the tables and pods, so that when the pods are outplanted from our nursery onto degraded patches of the reef, they're not just looking nice for tourists or increasing the coral cover, but they're actually going to act as spawning hubs during spawning seasons. Instant fertilization and genetic diversity for natural recruitment and larval retention here in the bay. This will double our work and make coral cover increase and genetic diversity more efficient with the help of nature. So we've been here just under 3 months now, and we've already seen some great results. We've planted over 3,500 coral fragments in our nursery, and they are performing really well so far. We've also taken about 125 crown of thorns starfish out of the water, lowering that population down to a safe level. And so far we have about 45 unique species from 6 different genera in our nursery, with over 100 genetic variants. So this is a very diverse nursery with really good ecological function that exists in the nursery itself, but that will also be very useful for us when it comes to active restoration, that is the outplanting of these corals back onto the reef in the future. So we will be monitoring the success of this project over the next 3 years using lots of comprehensive monitoring protocols. We have monitoring for the baseline of this whole bay, long-term trends over the next 3 years and into the future. We have specific restoration monitoring that will be set up to try and capture the effects of our active restoration efforts. We have monitoring on our nursery structures themselves to see how the coral that we are farming are doing as they grow. And also we'll be monitoring other environmental parameters such as temperature, wind speeds, waves, and also things like crown of thorns and drupella. This project's also really unique in that we will be studying the carbon sequestration properties of the mineral accretion technology. We are partnering with Giovanni from Italy, who will be studying these properties for the first time and seeing how mineral accretion technology can be a useful technique for sequestering carbon, both in the coral and on the structures through that chemical reaction. And finally, this project would be worth nothing if we don't give back to the community in some way. And we're doing that in a really big way, sharing the vision of the Asian Development Bank who are supporting us and handing this project back to Palau in 3 years' time. So we are here just to set up the project, train the local staff and build capacity for this kind of work. And in 3 years, we will hand the whole thing over to be stewarded by the people of Palau here at Palau Pacific Resort. So that's the implementation phase of our project come to an end. We'll be back in 3 months to check up on the progress. And then from there, it will be 3 years of outplanting and repopulation as we start to see our aims and objectives achieved. So far so good. The project's going really well, and we're really hopeful and optimistic that this is going to make real change here at Palau Pacific Resort. So stay tuned to see the results coming in the future.